I watch a lot of anime. It's fun to dig through the latest seasonal shows, even though I end up not really enjoying most of them. But it's worth it when you find that one gem that reminds you that this is why you do it. Ranking of Kings is one of those gems, and I am definitely not alone in thinking that. It is ranked number 24 on my anime list at an average score of 8.84. It is truly a phenomenal piece of fiction that is even able to get me invested in characters with the tiniest parts. The side character, I don't care, I'm ready, let's see their backstory. Every character genuinely feels like a part of the world that they are building. They all feel like real people with real motivations, and those motivations aren't always crystal clear. And I feel like that's how this anime is able to get people completely invested so quickly. This anime really has a way of telling a lot while saying very little, and this allows for very fast-paced storytelling where you also don't feel like you are missing anything. Let me tell you how Ranking of Kings was able to break me in as little as 2 episodes. Ranking of Kings is about a little prince named Bojji who is both mute and deaf. He is unable to hear or speak, and on top of that, he is insanely weak. He isn't even able to hold a proper sword. One day he runs into a thief named Kage who is from the Shadow Clan. Kage is somehow able to understand and communicate with Bojji despite his disabilities, and Bojji is ecstatic. Kage is in the middle of robbing him, but Bojji is just happy that someone finally understands him. He gives everything he currently has on him to Kage, and they even agree to meet the next day so Kage can rob him again. Through this, Kage starts to learn more about Bojji, and he starts to grow more fond of him. So one day he gets curious and decides to follow him into town after their meeting. This is where Kage learns what the people of the kingdom really think about Bojji. Because of his shortcomings, no one respects Bojji, but he still wants to eventually become king and rise to be the #1 ranked king in the world, and not a single person in the entire kingdom believes in his dream. As a matter of fact, everyone actually thinks he's an idiot. People laugh at him behind his back, and they think that he is completely unaware of everything that happens around him, but he is very aware of what people think of him. He is very aware of the situation he is in. While Kage is tailing him, he also finds out that Bojji has a brother named Daida, who also wants the throne. His brother looking like a much more suitable candidate because Daida can hear, speak, and he possesses real strength. Bojji's sword instructor Domus looks at him frustrated by Bojji's lack of strength. He is the greatest swordsman this side of the Mississippi, and his talents are being wasted on somebody who lacks the fundamental building blocks to learn. But you see his eyes light up when he starts sparring with Bojji's brother Daida. He realizes that this is someone that he can teach. This is someone who has the strength necessary to learn. Bojji realizes this and wants to prove that he is worthy of his teachings, so he challenges his brother to a duel. Everyone gathers thinking that Bojji is going to get stomped, except for one guard who had seen Bojji's training before. This isn't a moment like in other anime where the main character shows that they are secretly overpowered even though everyone else thinks that they are weak and stomps the competition into the dirt. But it is a moment where the main character shows that they are not as defenseless as everyone assumes. Bojji has honed the ability to dodge by constantly training with snakes, and this makes him almost impossible to hit, but he is still very weak, so he lacks any kind of finishing power to defeat his brother. But when the instructor steps in, that is when this fight takes a turn. He tells Bojji that this is not how you should fight, and he forces him to trade blows with his brother. This puts Daida at a massive advantage, and he beats his brother mercilessly in an attempt to keep him bedridden for months. And it feels so unfair. This should have been Bojji's moment, but him being born the way he is has left him broken. He crawls out of bed, and he attempts to lift a sword. But he didn't have the strength to lift it while he was healthy, so how can he possibly lift it while battered and bruised? Bojji cries in frustration, wondering why he was born so weak. Why does no one believe in him? It's heart-wrenching. This moment really resonated with me personally. The anime did a wonderful job showing how isolated Bojji feels. He can't hear or speak, which immediately causes people to think a certain way about him. Everyone makes fun of him behind his back, nobody takes him seriously, and it feels lonely. Nobody has ever really rooted for Bojji. Nobody has ever really wanted to see him succeed. He's heard everything that everyone has ever said, and his frustration feels warranted. Kage comes out to tell Bojji that he thought his fighting style was really cool. Bojji attempts to hide his tears, but Kage tells him that it's okay. He understands, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Kage says that he wants to be in his corner. He believes that he has what it takes to be the #1 king. Bojji starts crying again. He finally has someone who truly understands him. And this is when I also started crying. We haven't even made it a full 2 episodes into this anime yet, and it already got me. Like, how? How did it do it? Well, it's the way that Ranking of Kings handles its storytelling. Show don't tell is a very important rule that a lot of shows tend to forget. There are a lot of anime that believe that exposition dumping in a cafe for half an episode is good storytelling. But here's a hot take. I don't think it is. As I said at the beginning, Ranking of Kings is able to say so much without dialogue ever being exchanged that it never has to slow down to make sure that you understand. They never waste a single second of screen time. They don't waste time on a character shouting their objectives and their reasonings for doing things. They present the story and the characters in a way where you just understand. Even in the scene I just talked about where Bojji realizes that his instructor sees potential in his brother Daida and he wants to prove his own worth, Bojji doesn't actually have to say that because, you know, he literally can't. He's mute. You get everything you need from this 8 seconds of body language. It's so easy to understand because these characters feel so genuine. Like, God damn, this anime is so good. The characters feel like real living human beings with their own goals and aspirations. Like, who is this? Why do some anime characters feel like a copy of an impersonation of a character that is based on a different character? Why do they make side characters where the only goal of these characters is to talk about how amazing the main character is? You are not characters. You are cardboard cutouts. But in Ranking of Kings, people have strengths, they have flaws, and it makes them feel very human. They don't just rock up unprompted and say, hey, you better show me some respect or I'm gonna beat your ass. Do you think you're cool just because you're a main character? Like, who does that? Nobody does that. In Ranking of Kings, we have characters like the mom, who originally is a character that I hated. She is not related to Bojji by blood, and she seems like this evil stepmother witch type character. When you see the first interaction of the anime between Bojji and his stepmother Hilling, it looks like she hates the fact that Bojji is the one who is next in line to be king instead of her own son. It seems like she thinks Bojji is incompetent and unworthy of the throne. But later you realize that she does in fact love Bojji. Now, she is a bit weird and she may not present her feelings in the best way, but Hilling just seems like a kind parent who wants to care for her sons and earn their respect and affection. The reason she shows this disdain towards the idea of Bojji becoming the new king is because she's afraid that her son will fail because of his disabilities, which is a very normal thing for a parent to feel. People's intentions aren't always immediately clear. This is how people are in real life. You don't always get the big picture. People's actions aren't all good or all bad. It's usually just what they think is best in that certain situation. Showing these parts of these characters' lives where they have to make tough decisions and how they handle themselves in those situations tells so much about these characters. And you might think, well, yeah, that's just good writing. Every story does that, right? Wrong. There are so many anime with side characters whose entire personality is one single trope. Okay, man, I get it. You love your sister. I got it the first 500 times you said it. Rehashing this same situation over and over again where he talks about how much he loves his sister doesn't do anything. It doesn't add or take away anything from his character, but what it does do is waste your time. But Ranking of Kings respects your time. They slowly reveal bits of information about everyone without ever showing the full picture, which leaves a layer of mystery that keeps you wanting more. It keeps you coming back week after week. And these bits of information that they reveal tell you more about the characters and the world that they live in. Now, this next part I'm about to talk about contains spoilers, so if you haven't watched Ranking of Kings yet, feel free to skip to this timestamp on screen. Or, you know, you can just be bad and watch this part anyway. Look at you just breaking the rules. So the last thing that I want to talk about is Domus, who is Bojji's sword instructor that I touched on earlier. He is a proud warrior that respects power and wants to follow the crown and do what's best for the kingdom. He seems like a good enough guy that does what he thinks is best. That's why it is so unsettling when you see what happens later in the anime. At the end of episode 3, Bojji, Domus, and Hokuro set off on an adventure. But during the adventure, when they are looking down into a deep chasm, Domus lures Bojji towards the edge. Then he raises his hand and pushes Bojji off into the abyss. This was a terrible, irredeemable act, and the first question you ask is why? Why would he push Bojji off of a cliff? But it makes more sense after showing this scene. Let's rewind to the time where there is a vote held to determine who should be the next king, Daida or Bojji. And Domus chooses Daida, which isn't inherently an evil decision, but it does go against the previous king's wishes and it betrays his pupil Boji. Daida ends up winning the vote and becomes the new king. Domus is then called in by Daida, who knows that he went against Boji and voted for Daida. He yells at Domus and asks how can he trust him. He was supposed to be faithful to his pupil, but he betrayed him. He tells Domus that he needs someone who he can trust, someone who is willing to do what needs to be done for the benefit of the kingdom. Domus, flustered, says that he is that person, that he is willing to do whatever he deems necessary. And that is when Daida says that he needs Domus to kill his brother Boji. This is a tough decision to make, especially for Domus, and he doesn't take it lightly. What do you do when asked by your king to kill a boy that shined a ray of light on your life? He did believe that Boji was not as fit to be king as Daida, but killing him? Could he bring himself to do it? How far should he go for his king and his country? And now when it goes back to the horrific scene where Domus has just pushed Boji off, I still believe that what he did was an irredeemable act, but now I feel a little sympathetic towards Domus. He has been trained to believe that he should follow the crown, so when he is told to do this thing that he doesn't agree with but still holds the desire to follow it, it's tough. You see that he doesn't agree with the decision that he had to make. He even goes as far as cutting off the hand that he used to push Boji off. Now I am left sitting here wondering if Domus is truly an evil person, or did he just perform an evil act? This moral ambiguity humanizes the characters of this world, and it's a great change of pace. Because in real life as well, people aren't inherently good or evil. People make decisions. People get pressured. Sometimes they make mistakes or choices that they wouldn't have normally made if they weren't under that said pressure. It's not as simple as when you have the hero and the villain, where there is a very clear line and you know for certain who is righteous and who is evil. And that is what is so wonderful about Ranking of Kings. That's why I love this anime so much. If you watched the entire video today, I want to thank you very much. Ranking of Kings is one of those anime that remind me that this is why I watch so much seasonal anime. It really is worth digging through everything to experience amazing pieces of media like Ranking of Kings. If you enjoyed what you heard and you want to hear me talk about anime live and in person, I do have a Twitch that you can find in the links down below. But that's going to be all for me, and just remember, you don't have to believe in yourself. Believe in me. Believe in the me that believes in you, and I'll see you in the next video.